representing a period style, architectural innovation, or method of construction. And the materials in the back go into more detail and offer some guidance as to what is a historic designation. So today we have two locations, two sites that have been nominated for historical landmark designation and have been preliminarily approved by the Landmarks Committee. The process is the committee receives nominations, the committee meets and considers the nominations and selects from a preliminary paper review which nominations meet the criteria. And then we have site visits, and so we schedule the committee, or as many members as can, go to the actual site and we discuss the site and how it fits or doesn't fit in the criteria. If there have been extensive renovations, if the original architecture, for example, is no longer visible, we oftentimes say, no, this won't meet our criteria. So we have extended conversations, and then we decide which of the nominations we select for preliminary approval. And then we schedule this hearing, and it is a public hearing. It's been noticed, Steve noticed it, every place we could think of to notice the county of public hearing. And people are invited and welcome to come and make comments. And what we'll do this afternoon is we'll have one of our committee members give a little presentation as to the site that has been nominated and why the committee believes it meets the criteria. We will open the floor for public comments, and then we will close the hearing. At the close of the hearing, the committee makes its final recommendations to the board for the Milwaukee County Historical Society, who approves or does not approve our recommendations. For those recommendations that are approved, then at our annual meeting, a certificate will be awarded to those who have been approved for landmark designation. So that's the criteria. With that, I'm going to introduce Mary Reed, and Mary is going to talk about the country day school that now is known in the Max and Anita Karl Jewish Community Campus. Thanks, Mary.
Can I move this? I can see this.
That's true. Well, you can see over the top of it.
I will have that up for you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. On behalf of the Landmarks Committee, I present the first nomination, which in this case is a building, to be designated a Milwaukee County landmark. The building is the Milwaukee Country Day School. It opened its doors on September 17, 1917, with 55 students. To provide some historical background, the Country Day School movement is a movement in progressive education. It originated in the United States around the late 19th century. Country Day School sought to recreate the educational rigor, atmosphere, camaraderie, and character-building aspects of the best college prep boarding schools, while allowing students to return to their families at the end of the day. To avoid the issues of the industrial cities of the early 20th century, the schools were situated in the country. Milwaukee Country Day was no exception. The school was literally in the country. A few hundred yards to the east was the shore of Lake Michigan. Nothing but farmland stretched to the north and west, and 3 or 4 miles south of this lonely building, one would find the northern limits of the city of Milwaukee. According to historian Bill Stark, to each graduate, Milwaukee Country Day may mean something a bit different. But if there's one common denominator for all, if one phrase can capture the character and faith of this school, it is, don't wait to become a great man, be a great boy. The rigors of the trip to and from this school were well remembered. Almost without exception, the entire faculty and student body rode the trolley car. Their homes were mostly located on what today is known as the Lower East Side of Milwaukee, which was 8 miles and 40 wild minutes from the school. Upon arriving at the school station, the trolley disembarked its passengers at the railhead at 8:40 a.m. Students and faculty would walk en masse a block west of the front entrance of the school. The trolley was known as the Yellow Streak. During the first part of the second year of Country Day's existence, World War I was being fought. Patriotic support of the war effort was played out at the beginning of each school day. Before entering the building, all students and faculty members stood in ranks at attention while the flag was raised and two fifth formers played revolt on bugles that were almost as big as they were. Had World War I lasted much longer, Country Day may very well have had to do without its first headmaster, A. Blvd. Santer. In the faculty minutes of September 17, 1918, the following reads, Mr. Santer announced that he was to leave for the year to enter war service. The war was over 2 months later. The gymnasium facilities had not been provided with the original building. In 1919, $50,000 was raised by private contribution and was added to the senior school. This new addition was greeted with great enthusiasm. By the 1920s, Country Day was firmly established. It had weathered its early growing pains very well. The 1917 school building was designed by architect Hermann Buming. Buming was the first son of German emigres who had settled in Milwaukee in 1884 when Buming was age 12. He graduated from the 16th Street School in 1888 and then apprenticed as a draftsman with Charles A. Rombert and became head draftsman at the Pabst Brewing Company. In 1891, he enrolled at the Columbia University Architecture School in New York City, and after graduation, he worked in the office of well-known New York architect George Post, who designed many famous Beaux-Arts style buildings in New York, but also designed the Wisconsin State Capitol. Having trained and worked with Gilded Age architects of New York and of the Columbian Exposition in 1893, Hermann Buming could have succeeded anywhere in the United States. He chose instead to return to Milwaukee to found his own practice and to live in the home he designed on Newberry Boulevard on North Prospect. Among his many commissions are more than 75 homes within walking distance of Lake Park. Here are some beautiful images of his architectural designs of homes that still stand. While these homes demonstrate fluency and portfolio of styles, each bears his signature of pleasing proportion honed in his Columbia University curriculum of classical architecture. But rather than imposing a preferred style, Buming's homes reveal an openness to reflect the personal tastes of his friends and associates. Buming also designed commercial buildings such as the Watkins building on 3rd and Kilburn and the Chalet on the River, formerly the C.W. Fisher Furniture Store. These buildings no longer stand. So the founding trustees of the new Milwaukee Country Day School by 1917 were most certainly aware of the talents of Hermann Buming. Hiring him came as no surprise. The design Buming settled upon was American Tudor Revival constructed in brick. I share with you slides of the building plans drawn by Buming based upon plans from other Country Day schools. Based on plans from other Country Day schools on the East Coast and around the Midwest. The building will accommodate a school of 100 boys and provides opportunity for future enlargement. Ample classroom facilities, gymnasium, locker, and shower rooms are included. The arrangement of these units is such as to facilitate the daily internal administration of the school and to minimize confusion and friction. The seating and lighting of the classrooms and study halls and the ventilation and plumbing of the whole building are very carefully planned. The older and younger boys have separate study halls, recitation rooms, and locker and shower rooms. There's a good kitchen and a large, well-lit dining room. This is for their daily lunch. The gymnasium is planned not only to be conveniently near the locker rooms, but to be easily accessible from the main floor, as well as when it's used for lectures, entertainment, or school parties. The building is to be a simple but substantial construction and is planned to meet in every detail the needs of a Country Day school. Situated on a 25-acre tract of land, there is adequate room for athletic fields, as you can see in this drawing. A football field with a running track, a baseball field, tennis courts, practice field, and outdoor ice hockey. I share with you current pictures of the building. Note the limestone arch doorway on the east side of the north building. Large arch windows are repeated along each corridor, allowing abundant light to enter the academic spaces. Within the main limestone arch are decorative carvings as well as the initials MCDS. On the east side of this building are whimsical sculptures celebrating the mission of this campus, academics and athletics. The Owl of Wisdom, the monkey reading, frog sailing, bird with tennis racket, hockey goalie rabbit, baseball player monkey, and football dog. Note the exceptional brickwork and half timbering of the Tudor Revival style shown on the west side of the building, and here with a beautiful oriel window.
On one side.
Okay, sure. That would be slide 5.
Yeah, I'll get there in a minute. I'm having a little bit of a, sorry.
Here we go.
Once more.
Yes.
There we go. I'm sorry, so we were at the last,
With this one at the bottom, underneath the football dog.
yeah. There we go.
Here it is. Now we're getting into
Thank
the
you.
Tudor Revival style. So this is the west side of the building, and then the next slide shows a beautiful oriel window.
That's not the one.
That's all right. Well, there, if you go to the next one, you can see there is this very prominent front gable over the doorways that is with carved decorative elements and here of baseball bats and balls. There it is. Here, and then the south entrance of the building, another oriel window and a half timber front gable and half timber elements above the brickwork. And then we go to the interior images. Space was formerly the gymnasium, but is now an auditorium, and 2 stairwells. In 1987, this campus became the Milwaukee Jewish Day School. Milwaukee Country Day School merged with Milwaukee University School and Milwaukee Downer Seminary and moved to a new campus in River Hills. Today, this campus is known as the Max and Anita Karl Jewish Community Campus. Our committee is recommending that this building be designated as a Milwaukee County landmark as it meets these criteria for landmark status. A, this is a building of historic, architectural, and educational significance to Milwaukee County. C, this building embodies the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type inherently valuable for a study of a period style or method of construction, as well as a notable work of an architect whose individual genius influenced his time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mary. Chair, I know we don't have anyone from the public school here. Is there anybody here who would like to make a public comment with regard to the nomination of this building for landmark designation? See no one making asking a public comment. Our next building is the Wisconsin Club. Oh, sorry, Claiborne.
So, are we looking at more than one, different location? So,
So we're looking at there's two sites. The one that Mary was presenting
Yeah.
was the Country Day School.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the second nomination that we have today are for preliminary recommendation.
No, the Wisconsin Club.
It's the Wisconsin
I am
Club.
familiar with that. But I apologize.
That's right?
So if we step back and look at the other building, the school.
Yes.
So I see from the body of his work, all of the homes that he's built along with the school. I mean, clearly he stands out in terms of being an excellent architect. There's no question about that. But then if you ask me to vote for one building, which is this school, then I would say, what's the academic achievement of that school? What have the students come from that school? I mean, we're talking about a building. What has that building produced in terms of kids, children, and their contributions to our society? I'd like to see that. I don't see that in the presentation.
So, and you're right. I mean, it's not something that we took into consideration. We were really, it's an interesting perspective, and I don't know that as a committee we've talked about that perspective. What we were looking at in particular was the structure. So it wasn't what the structure did
All
or.
of those homes were built.
Yes.
All of them.
They were used to demonstrate an example of why this building, the Country Day School or the Max and Karl Jewish Community Center, fit into the criteria, which is that it is an example of architecture by a well-known architect, and those other buildings, which have not been nominated, at least not for this season, were presented by Mary to demonstrate that in fact, Mr. Buming was in fact a well-known architect. That's other examples of his work, but in terms of this criteria as to why Country Day School fit the criteria is because it is but one more example of his architecture or architectural work. But your comment about what did the school produce, I think is very interesting. So I can tell you from my own historical experience, not that I ever went to school there, but when you look at the history of schools in the North Shore area and the history of education, that school, Country Day School, University School, and now it is no longer most of the campus is a community campus, but its uses have been integral to the area and the education. I can't speak to who went on to become architects or lawyers or doctors or whatever their degree might have, whatever their success might have been, but I know it's been well known within the area for its level of education. And I don't know if anyone else has, and I haven't done the history, so I apologize, I'm not prepared to answer any of those questions, and I don't know if anyone else has familiarity with the education product.
So my next question would be, it probably was a segregated school. They're all white students.
I don't know that it was intentionally segregated. I do think by virtue of where it was located and the people that were traveling to that school, I think that certainly I think you are right as to the result, that it was an all-white school in the early 1900s. By the time it was university school, it was not. But I also don't know what the racial makeup was, because even at that time period, if you look at the population of people that were going to school in their area, yes, I think certainly the population was primarily Caucasian. Again, I don't know that it was ever, and I haven't done the history, so I can't say it wasn't, but I don't know that it was ever part of the charter that it was a segregated school. But I think the impact of Mary's saying no, but I certainly think the impact of location led to that. As many of the other public schools that developed in that area.
I can produce some yearbook pages where I distinctly remember there being Black students there, and I'm sure some Asian students as well. So it wasn't designed to be discriminatory, it wasn't a segregated school. If anything, I think it would be fair to say that what determined your ability to go there was probably more income related than race. But I'd be happy to email those to you.
I'd be interested in seeing.
All right, you got it. Sure.
Yeah, great questions, thank you. Any other questions or comments with regard to?
I'd be interested, excuse me, I'd be interested in also knowing the accomplishments of those white students too. I'm not just interested whether there were black students there. What did the white students do for the greater good of our society?
That'll be a little bit harder.
Okay, but I would want that. I mean, I'm not saying that you can do it. I'm simply saying that would be something that I would want.
I guess that information can be.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments with regard to the Mount Carmel Jewish Community Center Country Day School? Okay, then I'm going to turn the floor over to Mark Knapp on the second nomination or second preliminary recommendation from the Landmarks Committee for landmark status is the Wisconsin Club. And Mark?
The Wisconsin Club, formerly the Deutscher Club at 900 Wisconsin Avenue, has been in existence since 1891 as a social club. Prior to that, the mansion the club occupies was the home of Alexander Mitchell, who lived from 1817 to 1887. Mitchell was an immigrant from Scotland who went on to become one of Milwaukee's most well-known and respected businessmen of the 19th century. Mitchell was a banker, one of the founders of Marine Bank of Wisconsin, a railroad tycoon, president of the Chicago and Milwaukee St. Paul Railway, also known as the Milwaukee Road. And he served in that post from 1864 to his death in 1887. He was also a politician. He represented Wisconsin in the United States Congress. With fellow railroad director Jeremiah Milbank and fellow investor William Rockefeller, he built the Milwaukee Road into one of the most profitable in the United States, and Mitchell became the wealthiest person in Wisconsin at that time, with an estimated wealth of $20 million. He was also an avid curler who helped popularize the sport in the United States and was a founding member of the Milwaukee Curling Club in the 1840s when Scottish settlers played on the frozen Milwaukee River. And I learned something that I didn't know, is that curling is a Scottish sport. After Mitchell's death, his widow moved full-time to Florida, and their only son, John L. Mitchell, moved his family into the mansion, but found it too big even for his large family. John leased the mansion to the Deutscher Club, a men's social club founded in 1891 to promote and provide a venue for German-American understanding and fellowship. The Deutscher Club originally held meetings in the Stadt Theater, the site of the present Pabst Theater. After that theater was damaged by fire in 1895, the Deutscher Club needed a new home and began renting the Mitchell Mansion. The mansion was located on Grand Avenue, now renamed Wisconsin Avenue. In 1898, an offer to purchase the mansion for $165,000 was made and accepted by the Deutscher Club. In 1905, the conservatories and greenhouses, shown on the left side of the tower of the slide, were replaced by a new wing containing suitably large club dining room and equally long bowling alleys. Most of the principal reception rooms, such as the Moorish room, remain untouched, but the upper floors were remodeled to allow for more bedrooms, adjusting the club life. During World War I, anti-German sentiment in Milwaukee ran high, and the Deutscher Club changed its name to the Wisconsin Club, as it remains today. Over the years, many distinguished visitors to the club have included Grand Duke Alexei Androvich of Russia, Prince Henry of Prussia, Julia Ordhowe, and Presidents Grant, Cleveland, and Theodore Roosevelt Jr. shown in his motor car at the front of the slide. Today, the Wisconsin Club is host to luncheons, meetings, weddings, galas, and social events, both casual and formal. While the general public typically only sees the Wisconsin Club and the Belvedere from the street, members and guests are treated to the signature architecture within the former residence that has endured since the incorporation of Milwaukee as a city. This slide here shows Belvedere, or the gazebo as some refer to it. It's a large 1.5-story wooden structure built by Mitchell for the purpose of viewing his extensive gardens and greenhouses from an idyllic suburb. The Belvedere foundation was built at the same stone as the foundation of the wrought iron fence built around the site at the same time. It was said that the fence and gates cost more than what Mitchell had donated to charity during his years, or roughly about $20,000 in 1800s dollars. The foyer off the South Wisconsin Avenue entrance is from 1872, part of a remodeling of the original house under Milwaukee architect Edward Townsend Wicks. The original stained glass front entry doors at the east end of the first floor are a reminder of when the house front was reorientated by Alexander Mitchell to face the south so that the mansion would have a grand avenue entrance. You can see the original eastern entry in porch, that one in this slide. And the current main entrance is there on the left at the base of the tower. Go ahead. The central grand staircase in the east portion of the original home rises to the second floor. Artists from Europe were commissioned to adorn the interior of the Mitchell home with elaborate hand-carved mahogany woodwork, stained glass, plaster, and inlaid tile. The grand staircase is adorned with 24 carved lion heads that took a single craftsman 7 years to produce. When the Deutscher Club purchased the mansion, they removed the conservatory on the south side and built a bowling alley for the members. In 1950, the room was remodeled to become the first floor dining room. In 2008, the club opened the veranda adjacent to the Mitchell room as an open gallery outdoor dining room, shown to the right. The Deutscher room was the original first floor formal dining room of the club. The ornate fireplace hood seen on the back wall in this slide displays the letter D and C for Deutscher. We can make it out of that. It's there in that number. Next slide. The Grand Ballroom was part of the major additions to the Deutscher Club made in 1899. After the conservatory and greenhouse were dismantled, construction began and was completed in 1900. Designed in the Art Nouveau style, the ballroom features a wall filled with folding French doors, shown on the right, that lead into the Gold Room, also known as the Milwaukee Room. North of the Grand Ballroom stands the Gold Room, part of the 1899 addition. It was built to provide a formal dining room for the members and their wives and guests, since the dining areas on the first floor were then exclusively male and members only were allowed. Decoration in the room includes whimsical molded plaster beam brackets. During our tour of the facility, go ahead, oh, sure. We were trying to determine what the figures represent. If you look, you can see a steering wheel, hard hat, goggles, horn, and what appear to be sharp, pointy instruments in the hands of some of the figures. The Milwaukee County Historical Landmarks Committee has determined that the Wisconsin Club meets the selection requirements for county landmark status per the following criteria. Criterion B. It is connected or associated with a significant historic event or a person or persons who significantly contributed to Wisconsin Club was built by Alexander Mitchell, a Scottish-born banker, railroad financier, and Democratic politician in early Milwaukee. Mitchell was one of the most prominent Milwaukeeans of the 19th century and was sometimes referred to as the Rothschild of the West. Alexander Mitchell was the grandfather of General Billy Mitchell, World War I flying ace, first chief of the Air Force of the First Army, and regarded as the father of the United States Air Force. This property also meets criterion C. It exemplifies broad cultural significance and is a notable work of a design architect whose work influenced the development of the nation state of county. Originally built as a modest brick house in 1848 and expanded and remodeled into the Italianate style in 1858, which is shown on this slide. The Milwaukee architect Edward Townsend Miggs was later hired to transform and expand the existing structure into a second Empire mansion fit for the Gilded Age in 1872. Miggs was a well-known Midwestern architect whose career was centered in Milwaukee. Many of his designs made use of the region's distinctive Cream City brick. Other notable contracts were the National Soldiers' Home in Milwaukee, with its distinctive High Victorian Gothic style old man, Cathedral Church of All Saints in Milwaukee, the Kansas State Capitol, designed in French Renaissance style, and Villa Louis in Prairie du Chien in the Italian style. In the 1870s, Miggs shifted much of the focus of his design to Second Empire. Along with the remodeling of Mitchell's home, other works of this period include the Mitchell Building in 1876 and Mackey Building, or Grain Exchange, in 1879. Both buildings developed by Alexander Mitchell as investment property. Miggs also used Romanesque revival style for St. Paul's Episcopal Church, Queen Anne and Eastlake styles for the A.H. Allen House in Delavan, Wisconsin, and mixed these styles with Gothic revival for the Eversted Street Depot, also known as the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad Depot, built in 1886 for the Milwaukee. The third criterion this property meets is criterion D. It embodies the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type specimen inherently valuable for studying a period style, architectural innovation, or method of construction. The Wisconsin Club building, as renovated and remodeled by Townsend, is an excellent example of the Second Empire architectural style that was popular in the Midwest in the late 1800s. The most distinctive features of this highly decorated style are the steeply pitched mansard rooms at the third floor, the tall, imposing, asymmetrically placed four-story tower above the main entry facing Wisconsin Avenue, and the cast iron decorative cresting at the top of the tower, which is just barely visible at the top, kind of cut off. At the interior, the Moorish or Persian room, men's parlor, and the Oriental room, the women's parlor, are well-preserved examples of the Oriental style of interior decorating at the time, an eclectic mixture of Japanese, Chinese, Middle Eastern, and Persian motifs. Finally, this slide shows the gilded flower petal plasterwork in which race green is seen. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections required? Questions?
You showed us the other buildings just to they were all developed by this one architect.
Correct.
Who also built the Mitchell building. Who renovated it.
Yeah, it actually started as a fairly small house, and over time was added onto as Alexander Mitchell's wealth grew, and it ended up being a true Gilded Age mansion fit for what would what we would think of as, at this time, as a billionaire. He was on par with the Rockefellers and many other Eastern billionaires at the time.
Was it a much larger site? Did it decrease with the growth of downtown?
Yes, so the site where it is currently is just west of the main public library and just south of the courthouse. At the time, there wasn't much beyond that. And then Mitchell also owned a large area of land at what is now Mitchell Park on the other side of the valley. And after his death, that land was deeded to the county.
So his son took over after John?
Correct.
So John's not the aviator.
No, it's, I believe his son, who is, the aviator. But Billy Mitchell, that, I'm not sure of the direct connection, whether it was John's.
Did Billy live in the building?
He never lived in the building. He would have visited there. There is a bust and some commemorative elements that are still on display there on the first floor.
Mitchell Airport is named after Billy, right?
Correct. And Billy Mitchell is, if you ever want to read his autobiography, or his biography, I should say, he's a very interesting man. A World War ace, just because he wanted to be. Went on to be the person behind the idea that wars were no longer going to be fought on the ground or at sea, that wars were going to be fought in the air, and was the first person. The picture that you saw him there, standing beside the Osprey, that plane was his spotter plane that was used for the first demonstration of bombing a battleship after World War I. There was a captured German battleship that the Navy brought to off the coast of Virginia, and they didn't believe that it could be sunk by an airplane. And Mitchell and his people proved them wrong. It took about less than 30 minutes, and it was only 30 minutes because the Navy would only let them come in every 5 minutes or so to try to bomb it. But it sank very quickly, much to the chagrin of the admirals that were standing there, who said that a battleship could not be sunk by air.
But he was also a racist too. Billy Mitchell was.
Yes.
He was a
From what I
racist.
understand.
Yes, he was. I don't know about his father. He was. No question about it. He made his feelings known. Billy Mitchell. Don't know about John. Billy did. But we today fly planes because of him. No question about it.
Not so, that would have probably come about, but he was kind of the first to recognize, he was the first person to even, years before the beginning of the Second World War, identify why is the point where that would be the first point of the invasion from Vietnam. Went on to be court-martialed by the Navy, or the Army at the time, I should say.
Right, Mark, thank you for the presentation and introduction. As with the Jewish Community Center, I don't think we have anyone from the Wisconsin Club here to make comments. So I welcome, if there are any other comments with regard to the Wisconsin Club and whether the Wisconsin Club meets the landmark committee criteria, I'm happy to entertain those comments. And if not, we'll close the public hearing. The committee then, the landmarks committee will meet in, I guess I'll call it closed session, and make a recommendation or decide whether to continue their recommendation to the board of the Milwaukee County Historical Society. That board has a meeting coming up in October, so I'm sure we'll be presenting our formal recommendation at that time. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank all of the committee members and Historical Society staff, particularly Steve, for all of their work in accepting the nominations and reviewing the nominations and putting together a presentation today. And I also want to urge everybody to spread the word. We need more nominations. We need people to nominate building, sites, structures, events that meet the criteria within Milwaukee County. And we're looking for places throughout the county, not in any particular area, but we are looking for more nominations. And we will be publishing a list of the meeting times and dates. What I'd like to see is nominations submitted before the end of April, so that when the committee meets, we have an opportunity to discuss them. So, with that, see, unless I've forgotten something, I think the meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.